Welcome to this video. This is not just a business story. This is not just a brand story. This is a story about a man who refused to watch a baby die. A man who had no idea that his simple invention would one day feed the entire world. A man whose name would become a symbol of survival, love, and later, controversy. But let me warn you. This is not a fairy tale. This is not a clean, simple path to success. This is the story of Nestlé, one of the most powerful, most loved, and most criticized companies on Earth. It began in the 1800s with one man. No money, no social media, no startup funds. Just one purpose: to save a life. And that purpose became a product. That product became a movement. And that movement became a $100 billion global empire. In this 4-part series, you'll learn everything, every detail, every struggle, every victory, and every dark chapter. I will take you inside the mind of Henri Nestlé, a man who gave the world something it didn't even know it needed. This video is not just good for learning history or motivation. This video is also great for your English, because I will tell you everything in very simple, easy English. If you are a beginner or learning English, this story will help you understand how to tell stories, how to describe people's lives, and how to talk about business and growth in a very fluent way. So you're not just learning about Nestlé, you are also training your brain to think in English. That's why this video is not just a story. It's an experience. It's a mirror, showing you how even one man with a small idea can change the world. It's a guide, teaching you how purpose is more powerful than profit. And it's a message that says to you right now, wherever you are, if Nestlé can start from a sick baby and become the biggest food company in the world, then what's stopping you from building something great too? By the end of this 4-part story, you won't just know the name Nestlé. You'll feel like you've lived his journey. And maybe, just maybe, you'll start to believe in your own. Let's begin. Part 1. One man, one formula, one life saved. Henri Nestlé was born in 1814 in a small town called Frankfurt am Main in Germany. His real name was not Nestlé. It was Heinrich Nestlé. But later, when he moved to a French-speaking part of the world, people called him Henri. His father was a glassmaker. They didn't live a rich life. In fact, they had 13 children, and only 6 of them survived. Henri learned one thing early in life. Life is fragile. He saw babies die in his own family. He saw how hard it was for poor people to keep children alive when food was limited. He was curious. He was a problem solver. He wanted to become a chemist, someone who mixes materials to create useful products. So in his early 20s, he moved to Switzerland to a city called Vevey, a place that would later become the headquarters of Nestlé. But at this point, Nestlé was not a company. It was just a man, living alone, working hard, trying to find something meaningful to do. He started with simple jobs, making oil, vinegar, lemonade, and other small products. He even worked as a pharmacist's assistant, learning how medicines were made. But inside him, a bigger dream was growing. He wanted to invent something that could truly help people. In the 1800s, many babies died before the age of 1. Why? Because not every mother could breastfeed. There were no proper formulas. There were no alternatives for babies who were too weak, too sick, or whose mothers were sick. Doctors were helpless. Families were heartbroken. One of the biggest causes of death was malnutrition. babies simply couldn't digest the food people tried to give them. Henri Nestlé saw this problem. He didn't just feel sad. He didn't just complain. He asked the most important question any inventor can ask. What if I could make something that would save these babies? He began researching, studying baby digestion, studying breast milk, testing mixtures. And then, it happened. In 1867, after years of testing and failures, Henri Nestlé invented something new. A baby food made from cow's milk. Wheat flour, but baked to remove acid that upsets baby stomachs. Sugar. It was simple, it was safe, and it worked. He called it farine lactée. In English, this means milk flour. It could be mixed with water and fed to babies who couldn't breastfeed. This was not just a product. This was a miracle. That same year, a doctor in Vevey came to Henri Nestlé with a desperate case. A mother's baby was dying. The child couldn't take breast milk. Nothing was working. The doctor asked Nestlé if they could try his new invention. They fed the baby farine lactée, and the baby survived. The news spread quickly. People started calling it Nestlé's food. Mothers wanted it. Doctors recommended it. And Henri Nestlé realized, this is it. This is what I was meant to do. He gave it his name, Nestlé, which also means little nest in German. He used a nest symbol as the company's logo, a symbol of care, safety, warmth, and family. And just like that, the company Nestlé was born. In the next few years, Nestlé's food was sold not just in Switzerland, but across Europe. He started a small factory, trained workers, created instructions so the food could be made in different countries. But this was still the 1800s. There was no internet, no trucks, no phones. Everything was slow. Packaging was fragile. Products went bad if not handled carefully. Still, people trusted the Nestlé name because it wasn't just business. It was about saving children's lives. Even Queen Victoria's granddaughter used Nestlé products for her baby. But Henri was not interested in becoming a global CEO. He was a scientist, a creator, a humanitarian. So, in 1875, just 8 years after starting the company, Henri Nestlé sold the business to 3 businessmen. He wanted them to grow it bigger. He didn't care about money anymore. He just wanted to see his product help more people. Henri Nestlé died in 1890. But before he passed away, he had already planted the seeds for something far bigger than himself. He proved something important. If you focus on solving a real problem, the world will listen. His baby formula saved thousands of children. His brand became a symbol of trust. And even today, 150 years later, every Nestlé product still carries his name and logo. The world was changing. The year was 1875. The Industrial Revolution had already spread across Europe. Factories were booming. People were migrating from farms to cities. Science was advancing. But infant mortality, babies dying, was still high. So Nestlé's product was not just useful. It was needed. After selling his company to 3 businessmen in Vevey, Henri Nestlé quietly stepped away. He had done his part. Now it was up to these new owners to carry the Nestlé name into the future. And they were ambitious. They didn't want Nestlé to be a small-town baby food company. They wanted it to be global. But growing a brand in the 1800s wasn't easy. There were no planes, no internet, no Google ads. Only one thing: trust. People only bought what they believed in. And Nestlé's story of saving a child gave it that trust. But the new owners faced a problem they couldn't ignore. About 15 years before Nestlé, another company had started in Switzerland. It was called the Anglo-Swiss Condensed Milk Company. It was founded by two Americans, George and Charles Page. They had one goal: make milk last longer. Back in those days, milk spoiled quickly. It couldn't travel far. Babies and soldiers couldn't always access fresh milk. So the Page brothers created condensed milk, thick, sweet milk that could be stored in cans and last a long time. It became a huge success. It was used for everything: baby feeding, baking, tea, coffee, and even for army rations. By the time Henri Nestlé invented his baby formula, Anglo-Swiss was already doing well. Now imagine this: two companies, both from Switzerland, both trying to feed babies, both growing fast. A collision was coming, and for years, they were rivals. They competed in markets, pricing, and distribution. Sometimes, they even copied each other's products. But as the years went by, both companies realized something powerful. Instead of fighting each other, what if we join forces? In 1905, it finally happened. Nestlé and Anglo-Swiss Condensed Milk Company merged. And just like that, a new, stronger Nestlé was born. With factories in Europe, the US, Australia, South America, and Asia. Now they weren't just a baby food company. They were a milk empire. After the merger, Nestlé's business grew rapidly. They sold baby food, condensed milk, milk powder, evaporated milk. And during this time, milk was more than just a drink. It was a symbol of health, motherhood, care, and life. Nestlé used this symbolism to connect with families emotionally. They put the Nest logo, showing a mother bird feeding her babies, on every product. This was not just smart branding, it was storytelling. Every time someone saw the Nestlé logo, it reminded them of safety, family, and care. This emotional connection helped the company grow far beyond Switzerland. Factories were set up across United Kingdom, Germany, Spain, United States, India, Brazil. By the year 1912, Nestlé had become one of the biggest dairy food producers in the world. But then something happened that would change everything. A tragedy that would affect every company, every country, and every child on Earth. In 1914, the world went to war. World War I. Millions of people were killed. Economies collapsed. Factories stopped. Trade ended. Cities were destroyed. For a company like Nestlé, this was a nightmare. Shipping became dangerous. Workers were sent to fight. Milk supplies were low. Many factories were shut down. But Nestlé did something clever. They found a way to supply condensed milk to the armies. This became a new market. Soldiers needed high-calorie, long-lasting food. So Nestlé shipped condensed milk to British, French, and German troops. Their factory in the US stayed active and even grew. By the end of the war, Nestlé was no longer just a baby food company. It was now a key food supplier for the world. But the war had also taught Nestlé a lesson. We cannot depend on just one product. So, after the war ended in 1918, Nestlé made a bold decision. They were going to diversify. They were going to create new products that the world had never seen before. And one of them would become a revolution in how people drink coffee. Let's go back to the 1930s. After World War I, Nestlé had built many factories, but some of their biggest markets were in Brazil. Brazil had a coffee crisis. They were producing too much coffee, and prices were falling. The Brazilian government came to Nestlé with a request. Can you create a coffee product that's easy to make, easy to store, and lasts long? Nestlé took the challenge, and after 7 years of research, in 1938, they launched something revolutionary. Nescafé, the world's first instant coffee. Just add hot water, and your coffee is ready. No grinding beans, no brewing, no waiting. Nescafé was an instant success. It was affordable, easy, fast, and during tough times, that's exactly what people needed. But Nescafé's real explosion happened in 1939, World War II began. Another war, more destruction, more hunger, more soldiers. But this time, Nestlé was ready. They supplied condensed milk, milk powder, chocolate, and most importantly, Nescafé. The Allied forces, especially American and British soldiers, carried Nescafé in their packs. It became the coffee of the army. Fast, hot, energizing. Soldiers who drank Nescafé during war took the habit home when the war ended. And that's how Nescafé became a worldwide phenomenon. By the time the war ended in 1945, Nestlé was no longer just a food brand. It was a daily ritual in millions of homes. After World War II, the world wanted peace. Families wanted comfort. Life needed to feel normal again. And Nestlé understood this deeply. They began producing baby cereal, chocolate, canned milk, and of course, instant coffee at a massive scale. They entered markets like Philippines, India, South Africa, Mexico. They hired local workers, used local ingredients, and adapted to local tastes. This made Nestlé feel like a local brand in every country. In India, Nestlé would later launch Maggi. In Japan, Kit Kat became a sensation. In Africa, Nestlé built food factories close to the people. They didn't just want to sell, they wanted to belong. This was their power. Part 2. The Baby Formula Controversy. The darkest hour of the Nestlé empire. The 1950s and 60s were glorious years for Nestlé. Their name was everywhere. Their products were becoming emotional habits, not just items on a shelf. Mothers in Africa were feeding their children with Nestlé baby formula. Families in India were cooking Maggi noodles. Soldiers across the world were drinking Nescafé every morning. Nestlé was not just a company anymore. It was a part of people's lives. But when a company becomes too trusted, something dangerous can happen. People stop asking questions. And that's exactly where this story turns. Because behind the logo of the little bird feeding its babies, behind the smiling ads, behind the promises of health and love, there was a growing storm. And it was about baby formula, the very product that started Nestlé's empire. Back in the 1800s, Nestlé had created baby formula to save children whose mothers couldn't breastfeed. It was a beautiful invention, life-saving, science-backed, and filled with purpose. But over time, something changed. By the 1960s and 70s, Nestlé wasn't just selling baby formula to help babies who couldn't breastfeed. They were marketing it to every mother, everywhere, even to mothers who could breastfeed. Why? Because breast milk is free, but formula costs money. And for a company, profit grows when people stop using what is free and start paying for what you sell. So Nestlé launched a campaign that would become one of the most controversial marketing campaigns in human history. They began promoting formula in developing countries, especially in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. These were countries where clean water was scarce, sanitation was poor, and poverty was common. But Nestlé had a strategy. They sent saleswomen dressed like nurses into hospitals and villages. They handed out free samples of baby formula, They told mothers, "This is modern. This is scientific. This is better than breast milk." They gave the formula for free in the beginning. And it worked. Mothers stopped breastfeeding. They started using Nestlé's formula. Babies grew strong and healthy, as long as the free supply continued. But after a few weeks, the free supply ended, and mothers had to start buying the formula. But here's the painful part. Once a mother stops breastfeeding, her milk dries up. It doesn't come back. The body assumes it's no longer needed. So now, these mothers had no choice. They had to buy formula, or their babies would starve. And in places where money was low, many mothers diluted the formula with water to make it last longer. But the water wasn't clean. And the result? Thousands of babies started dying from malnutrition and waterborne diseases. Mothers were blamed, hospitals were blamed. But eventually, the world looked at Nestlé, and the question was loud. Did Nestlé know this was happening? In the late 1970s, a global movement began. Doctors, activists, and researchers began studying the effects of formula marketing in developing countries. The facts were terrifying. In many areas, more babies were dying after starting formula than before. Formula was being mixed with dirty water because clean water was not available. Many poor families couldn't afford enough powder and were feeding their babies half-nutrition. The company was accused of creating dependency, getting mothers hooked, then charging them. In 1974, a report was published in the UK titled "The Baby Killer." It was a direct attack on Nestlé, accusing them of unethical marketing that led to the deaths of infants in poor countries. Nestlé responded with lawsuits, saying the report was misleading, but the world had already seen enough. In 1977, the Nestlé boycott began in the United States. People around the world stopped buying Nestlé products. Students protested, doctors protested, churches joined the movement. It became a global storm. Nestlé, the company known for love and nourishment, was now seen as a villain, a company putting profit before the lives of children. For the first time in its history, Nestlé was on trial, not in court, but in the eyes of the people. The pressure was too much. Governments, health organizations, and the World Health Organization, WHO, got involved. In 1981, after years of research, WHO passed the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. It set strict rules. Formula companies could no longer give free samples to hospitals. They could not use nurses or health workers to promote products. They had to clearly mention that breastfeeding is the best choice. They were not allowed to market directly to mothers. Nestlé publicly agreed to follow the code. But the damage was done. The Nestlé brand, once a symbol of life, was now connected with manipulation, corporate greed, and death. Many people never forgave the company. Even today, the baby formula controversy is studied in business ethics classes around the world. It became the ultimate example of what can go wrong when marketing becomes more powerful than morality. But here's the twist. Nestlé didn't disappear. It didn't collapse. It did something else. Something rare in the corporate world. It listened. It learned. And it began to change. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Nestlé made huge reforms. They updated their marketing guidelines, improved formula education, partnered with governments for clean water access, added breastfeeding support on many of their websites and product labels. They even created Nestlé Nutrition Institute, an organization to support child health globally. But for many critics, this was not enough. And maybe it never will be, because some wounds are too deep to heal. After the global formula controversy, Nestlé was no longer innocent. They had been tested, they had been exposed, and they had been judged. But inside their boardrooms, they made a crucial decision. They would stop trying to just be big. Instead, they would try to belong. They didn't want to be seen as a global corporation selling foreign products. They wanted to be seen as a local friend, someone who understood the people. And to do that, Nestlé had to learn a new language. The language of culture. They had to stop thinking like a company and start thinking like a mother cooking in the kitchen, a child opening a snack after school, a father drinking his morning coffee in silence, a college student trying to cook something fast and tasty in 5 minutes. Nestlé had to stop being Nestlé the company and become Nestlé the feeling. Let's start with India. The year was 1983. India was a country of deep tradition, homemade food, and strong family values. Mothers cooked everything from scratch. Instant food was not popular. But Nestlé saw something that others didn't. They saw that Indian mothers were tired. They loved their families. They cooked with care. But every now and then, they needed a break, something fast, something easy, something their kids would eat without complaining. And that's when Nestlé launched something that would become a cultural revolution: Maggi 2-minute noodles. It wasn't just a product, it was magic. Wheat noodles, a tastemaker packet, boiling water, and in 2 minutes, you had something warm, salty, flavorful, and comforting. Mothers were skeptical at first, but kids loved it. And when kids love something, mothers notice. Nestlé didn't market Maggi as a replacement for dinner. They marketed it as a helper, a break, a snack. The slogan was genius: fast to cook, good to eat. College students in hostel rooms made Maggi at midnight. People added vegetables, eggs, cheese, and made their own version. Everyone felt they had a Maggi recipe. It became more than food. It became a memory, a part of childhood, a symbol of comfort. Now let's go to Japan. Nestlé wanted to enter the highly competitive chocolate market. But how do you compete in a country that already loves its own sweets? You listen. Nestlé launched Kit Kat in Japan in the 1970s. But they noticed something fascinating. In Japanese, the phrase kitto katsu means surely win. It sounded similar to Kit Kat students began eating Kit Kat before exams, as a good luck charm. And Nestlé didn't miss the opportunity. They leaned into this cultural connection. They released limited edition Kit Kats in flavors like green tea, strawberry cheesecake, wasabi, red bean, sakura cherry blossom, over 300 flavors, each one representing a different region, season, or emotion. Suddenly, Kit Kat became a gift item, a souvenir, a symbol of good luck, not just chocolate, emotion wrapped in foil. Now let's travel to Nigeria and Southeast Asia. Children were growing fast. Parents were worried about energy, height, and brain development. Nestlé launched Milo, a chocolate-flavored malt drink fortified with vitamins and minerals. But they didn't just sell it as a beverage. They sold it as a partner in childhood. They sponsored school sports, gave away Milo-branded water bottles, created sports kits, and told every parent, Milo makes champions. In countries where health was a daily concern, Milo became a badge of responsible parenting. A child with a Milo bottle looked strong, sharp, active, and mothers loved that image. What do all these stories tell us? They tell us that Nestlé stopped selling products. and started creating moments. They realized people don't buy based on price or nutrition facts. They buy based on memory, emotion, identity, and Nestlé began designing products that fit into every emotion of life. Morning coffee, Nescafé, afternoon energy, Milo, evening snack, Maggie, post-dinner treat, Kit Kat, baby food, Cerelac, health drink, Nestlé everyday milk powder. No matter what your day looked like, Nestlé was there. Quietly, softly, comfortably, in your cupboard, in your lunchbox, in your memories. And here's what made it genius. Nestlé didn't try to be the same everywhere. They adapted to each country's culture. In Brazil, Nescau. In Pakistan, everyday milk. In the Philippines, Bear Brand. In the US, Coffee Mate, Nesquik, Gerber. In Australia, Uncle Toby's. Different names, different tastes, same emotion. This strategy was called glocalization, a mix of global vision and local flavor. And it worked. By the early 2000s, Nestlé had over 2,000 brands in more than 190 countries. They weren't just a food company. They were part of your daily life. And most people didn't even realize it. Part 3. The Global Mirror. Health, Truth, and the Fight for Trust. In the early 2000s, Nestlé was everywhere. Your coffee, your water, your milk, your snacks, your baby food, even your pet food. Yes, Nestlé had expanded into Purina, one of the world's biggest pet nutrition brands. They were producing everything from chocolate to cereals, health drinks to mineral water, ice cream to vitamins. More than 2,000 brands across 190 countries. Every second, someone in the world was buying a Nestlé product. But here's the problem. The more people buy, the more people observe. The more Nestlé becomes part of your daily life. The more you start asking, what exactly am I putting in my body? And that question changed everything. Because slowly, people began to realize that some of Nestlé's most beloved products were not exactly healthy. Let's talk about sugar. Nestlé built emotional connections through food that tasted good. Really good. But that delicious flavor often came at a cost. Many of their top-selling products, Milo, Nesquik, Kit Kat, Nescafé 3-in-1, Maggie seasoning packets, cereals, snacks, were found to be high in sugar, salt, or processed ingredients. Parents started reading the back of the boxes. Health experts started doing lab tests. NGOs published reports. And suddenly, Nestlé was at the center of a new conversation. A dangerous one. The question was no longer, what does Nestlé make? It became, should we trust Nestlé with our health? In 2021, a leaked internal report shocked the world. It revealed that over 60% of Nestlé's food and drink products were considered unhealthy by modern nutrition standards, especially in countries like the US, UK, India, and Brazil. This included cereals marketed to kids, instant noodles, flavored drinks, candy, biscuits, ice cream. This wasn't a random blog or activist group. It was Nestlé's own internal document. It admitted that many of their products would not pass modern health guidelines. The same company that once stood for nourishment was now facing accusations of making people sick. But that wasn't the only problem. People weren't just questioning ingredients. They were questioning ethics. Let's talk about water. Nestlé had become one of the largest bottled water companies in the world, with brands like Perrier, Pure Life, San Pellegrino, and others. But to bottle water, you need one thing: access to water sources. In countries like Pakistan, India, South Africa, and parts of the US, Nestlé had made deals to extract groundwater at low costs, while local communities were suffering from water shortages. Villages with dry taps saw trucks full of Nestlé water bottles leaving their region. Protests erupted. Environmental groups raised alarms. Nestlé was accused of stealing water from the poor to sell to the rich. In Michigan, USA, Nestlé was allowed to pump millions of gallons of water for less than $200 a year, while nearby residents complained about low water pressure and ecological damage. And in other countries, similar stories repeated. Nestlé defended itself, saying it followed all legal rules and helped local communities too. But the question remained, should water be a business? For a brand with a bird in its logo, representing care and safety, this was a hard look in the mirror. At the same time, Nestlé faced backlash for its role in child labor in cocoa farming, especially in West Africa. Plastic waste from packaging. Greenwashing, claiming to be eco-friendly without real results. Misinformation in product marketing, like claiming nutritional benefits where there were none. Heavy lobbying against food regulations in many countries. Each controversy came with media reports, boycotts, hashtags, and public anger. And here's the thing. Nestlé was no longer facing these attacks in newspapers or documentaries. Now it was happening online, in real time, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. A single viral video could reach millions in hours. Nestlé had grown too big to hide. So what did Nestlé do? Did they ignore it? No. They responded, sometimes slowly, sometimes carefully. But they began to change. Because the truth is, you don't survive for 150 plus years by being stubborn. You survive by listening. Nestlé began launching transformation programs inside the company, reformulating products to reduce sugar, salt, and fat, increasing investment in plant-based foods, launching vegan and organic product lines, partnering with health organizations to improve child nutrition, creating clear nutritional labeling on packaging, setting goals for net zero emissions by 2050, reducing plastic use and experimenting with paper-based packaging, selling off their bottled water business in North America to focus on sustainability. They created teams specifically for social responsibility and environmental transparency. They began supporting clean water initiatives in poorer countries. They funded education programs for cocoa farmers to eliminate child labor. They worked with universities and governments to improve global food systems. In other words, Nestlé knew they couldn't erase the past, but they could shape the future. Here's what makes it so interesting. Most companies, when they're attacked, either deny or disappear. Nestlé didn't do either. They said, yes, we have problems, but we are here, and we're going to fix them. Was it perfect? No. Were people still angry? Yes. Did the media still expose their flaws? Absolutely. But Nestlé kept moving forward, changing their recipes, their packaging, their promises, and their behavior. Because they knew something powerful. People don't expect you to be perfect. They expect you to be honest and willing to grow. And that growth began showing results. In recent years, Nestlé has become a leader in the plant-based revolution. They launched Garden Gourmet, vegan meats and ready meals, Wunda, plant-based milk, Awesome Burger, to compete with Beyond Meat, natural supplements for health-conscious adults, more sugar-free and low-fat versions of old products. They created smart food labs using AI to design better nutrition. They invested in startups focused on health tech and sustainable farming. They made deals with brands that promoted mental wellness, fitness, and clean eating. In short, they went from being part of the problem to becoming part of the solution. But here's the question only you can answer. Do you trust them? Because in today's world, trust is earned every day. And Nestlé knows that. That's why they now talk less about profit and more about purpose, less about what they sell, and more about what they stand for, less about taste and more about transparency, because they understand. Parents want honest food for their children. Youth want brands that reflect their values. The world wants companies that care about people and the planet. Nestlé has learned that kindness is not just good branding. It's the only way to survive the future. So here we are. Nestlé has been loved, attacked, boycotted, and still it remains. Why? Because it adapts, because it listens, because it learns. And now, more than ever, it wants to become not just a global company, but a responsible one. Part 4. Nestlé, the empire, the evolution, and the eternal question. If you walk into any store anywhere on Earth, from the busiest supermarket in New York, to the smallest local shop in Uganda, to a floating market in Thailand, to a rural pharmacy in India, you'll find Nestlé. It may not say Nestlé on the front. It might say Kit Kat, Milo, Nescafé, Cerelac, Purina, Gerber Maggi, Nido, Smarties, Nestea. But behind it, the silent name sits there. Printed small, quiet, almost invisible. Nestlé S. A, the quiet owner of your morning, your childhood, your late-night hunger, and your memories. And that's what makes this story so powerful. Because you've lived it. Without realizing it. Nestlé has been a part of you. But now, in this final part, we look behind the logo, behind the warm feelings, behind the red, yellow, green wrappers and flavored packets, and ask the big question, what is Nestlé really? Is it a business, a brand, a villain, a savior, a teacher, or just a reflection of who we are as people? Let's look at the empire it has become. In the year 2024, Nestlé is one of the biggest food and beverage companies on the planet. Their revenue? Over $100 billion per year. Their brands? More than 2,000 across food, drink, health, wellness, baby nutrition, pet care, and beyond. Their employees? Over 270,000 people across 189 countries. Every second, 6,000 Nestlé products are sold somewhere in the world. And every time one is sold, a story continues. But here's the thing. Nestlé is not one company anymore. It's a universe of choices. In your house right now, check your kitchen. There's a very high chance that Nestlé is already there. A Kit Kat in the fridge. A Nescafé jar on the shelf. A Maggi packet in the drawer. Cerelac in your baby's bag. Purina food in your dog's bowl. Nestlé water in your fridge. Vitamin supplements in your cabinet. Health drinks in your gym bag. And you didn't even notice. That's how deep the company has gone into our lives. But let's be honest. Power comes with responsibility. And Nestlé's power is enormous. When you sell food, you're not just selling products. You're shaping health, habits, children's growth, and even emotions. And Nestlé has spent the last decade trying to take that responsibility seriously. Not because they're perfect, but because they finally understand something. In today's world, your brand is not what you say it is. Your brand is what the people feel when they hear your name. And Nestlé has heard both love and hate. So they're trying to rebuild something stronger. Trust. That's why they've cut sugar and salt in over 14,000 products, introduced plant-based foods in over 80 countries, created health science divisions to fight diabetes and heart disease, invested billions in sustainable packaging, farming, and fair trade, donated to water access projects in Africa and Asia, shifted 80% of their new products to have healthier profiles, committed to net zero emissions by 2050. These aren't just business moves, they are survival moves, not just for the company, but for the planet. Because Nestlé knows, if they lose the people, they lose everything. And people are now smarter, more conscious, more curious, more connected. One viral video, one boycott, one report, and billions can turn away. That's why Nestlé is changing. Not fast enough for some, but faster than most. Let's go back to where it all started, to a man named Henri Nestlé in 1867, standing in a small Swiss village, holding a bottle of his new baby formula, trying to save one child's life. He didn't have factories. He didn't have data. He didn't have a board of directors. He had one thing: purpose. And that purpose became a product. That product became a company. That company became a global brand. And that brand became an empire. But empires don't live forever, unless they remember why they began. And Nestlé, at its best, is a reminder of something deep, that if you care enough to solve a real problem, you might just build something that feeds the world. But Nestlé, at its worst, is also a warning that even the most beautiful mission can become dangerous when it forgets the people it promised to protect. This is what makes Nestlé's story so human. It is not a straight line. It is a circle of creation, mistake, growth, and healing. Just like you. Just like me. Just like all of us. So what's next for Nestlé? It's no longer just about food. Nestlé is now entering the world of nutrition science, gut health, mental wellness, supplements, brain-boosting ingredients, protein innovation, meat-free future, AI-powered recipe personalization. They're working with doctors, researchers, food scientists to build the future of human health. They've created Nestlé Health Science, Nestlé Institute of Packaging Science, and future food programs. They know people want honest ingredients, transparent labels, ethical sourcing, real nutrition, sustainability, taste without guilt. And that's what they're chasing now. But only time will tell whether they succeed not as a business, but as a legacy. So, now we end. Nestlé, a name that once saved a baby, now feeds the world. A brand that has brought smiles, comfort, controversy, and courage. A company that has been called both angel and enemy. But one thing is clear. Nestlé is not going anywhere. Because it is not just a name. It is a story. A story of invention. A story of trust. A story of power. A story of mistakes. A story of healing. A story of hope. And now, it's part of your story too. Every time you open a packet, every time you taste something familiar, every time you feed your child or drink your morning coffee, you're not just consuming a product, you're continuing a story that began over 150 years ago, with one man, in one village, trying to save just one child. Life-changing lessons from the Nestlé story. 1. Purpose is more powerful than profit. Henri Nestlé didn't start a company to get rich. He created something to save a child's life. That purpose gave birth to a legacy. The lesson? When your mission is rooted in service, not ego, your impact lasts far longer than money ever can. 2. Solve a real problem, and the world will follow you. Nestlé didn't sell fantasy. It solved a problem no one was fixing. Malnutrition in infants. If you want to build something meaningful, stop chasing trends. Solve a problem people feel every day. 3. Adapt or disappear. Nestlé faced world wars, food revolutions, health scares, environmental pressure. But it kept evolving. The world will change. If you don't change with it, you won't survive, no matter how powerful you are today. 4. When you grow big, the world will test your soul. Nestlé's darkest moments came after its greatest success. The bigger your name, the bigger the mirror the world holds up. Don't just build a brand, build a conscience, because success without integrity is just failure in disguise. 5. Apologize, correct, and rise again. Nestlé made serious mistakes, but it listened. It changed, it fixed, and it kept trying. Everyone falls. What matters is whether you're humble enough to admit it and strong enough to change. 6. Emotion is the real empire. Maggi, Milo, Kit Kat, Nescafé, they are not just products, they are feelings. If you want people to remember you, don't just enter their wallet, enter their memories. 7. Your story is stronger than any ad. Nestlé's real marketing was never a billboard. It was the story of a man trying to save a baby. If you want people to trust you, tell them the truth and let your story do the talking. 8. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to grow. Nestlé has been loved, hated, doubted, forgiven. But it kept growing. Don't aim to be flawless. Aim to be better than yesterday. And let time speak for you. Now, take a breath. You've just heard the story of a company that began with nothing but an idea and became a name whispered in kitchens across the world. But this is not just about Nestlé. This is about you. Because somewhere inside you is also an idea, a purpose, a beginning. Maybe the world hasn't noticed you yet. Maybe you're not big. Maybe you're still small, like Henri Nestlé was in 1867. But remember this, it only takes one decision, one idea, one moment of courage to change your life and maybe the world, just like he did. And yes, you'll make mistakes. You'll be misunderstood. You'll be judged, questioned, doubted. But if you keep learning, if you keep fixing, if you keep growing, you'll build something that lasts longer than your name. Something that feeds people. Something that heals people. Something that stays. So take this story and make it fuel for your own. Because maybe, just maybe, the next Nestlé is watching this video right now. If you felt something today, if this story taught you something, if it helped your English, if it moved your heart, if it inspired your mind, then don't leave empty-handed. Subscribe to this channel right now. Because we're not just telling stories. We're building a community of people who want to learn, grow, and leave a mark on the world. In simple English, with powerful messages and unforgettable truth. Join us. Your journey starts now. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story. Until then, stay curious, stay kind, and keep growing. Subscribe.